And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast. Allison, should we ask the generator what our word of the week is?
Oh, absolutely.
The word of the day is conspiracy.
All right, so conspiracy.
Thank you, generator.
Thanks, generator. Conspiracy is a noun, a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful, or the action of plotting or conspiring.
Oh. I think I might have taken this in a slightly different direction.
Oh, okay.
Than the definition might suggest. I don't remember who goes first.
I believe it's me, because I believe you went first for Notorious.
Okay.
All right, so I picked an anime, and it is known as Fullmetal Alchemist.
Ho
Have you seen Fullmetal Alchemist? I know I've talked to you about it ad nauseum before.
Yeah, no, I've actually never seen any of it. Any part of the large part of it.
Okay.
But I've definitely heard about it.
Okay.
So tell me everything.
I will tell you as much as I can. So, Fullmetal Alchemist. Specifically, I'm going to kind of stick with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. But some backstory is the original Fullmetal Alchemist was a manga written by I'm going to say her name wrong. Hiromu Arakawa. I know it's Arakawa. She's pretty awesome, by the way. Her self-portrait drawing is just a cow with some glasses, and it's like my favorite thing. But she wrote the manga, and then there was a first adaptation was in 2003. But it suffered from a lot of anime with the manga still being written, where the anime had a set schedule it needed to stick to, and it caught up and then surpassed the source material. So the 2003 version took it in a very strange direction toward the end of the series. So they revamped it in 2009 with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is a concise. I don't think there's a lot of filler episodes. There might be, but more of stick to the true source material, which is better because it involves less kind of crazy, mildly German Nazi things that happened in the 2003 series.
Oh.
Yeah. But the one gripe I do have with the 2009 Fullmetal Brotherhood is that you miss a lot of stuff because they assume you've seen the original one. There's a lot of character moments that you miss. One of my favorite scenes in the original is there's a colonel and his commanders, and the colonel's trying to overthrow the Fuhrer. And he goes, "When I'm in charge, I'm going to make all the female officers wear tiny mini skirts." And all the guys around him are like, "We'll follow you forever, sir." And it makes me crack up every single time. And there's other things you kind of miss some of Edward, the main character's, his ability to outwit his opponent. You miss all of Yuki's background. And then there's the Bury the Chopper and Winry episodes that you just kind of miss because they assume you've already seen it. But
you're going to have to explain all of this.
I will. Don't you worry.
All to me.
People who've seen it I assume know what I'm talking about. But so do you have any background with this at all? Do you know anything?
No, literally nothing.
Sounds good. All right. So, we'll kind of do broad strokes because there is a lot. But main characters are Edward and Alphonse Elric. Edward and Alphonse are brothers who live in a small town of Resenbol, and the country I believe is called Amestris. It's been a minute, but they live there with their mom. Their father, Hohenheim, was there and gone a lot, and then he just kind of yeets off into father abandonment area and just leaves them alone, much to Ed's frustration when the boys were real young. So their mother, Tricia, takes care of them, and she was their whole world, right? And then she falls ill and ends up passing away. And the boys are absolutely distraught by this, and they try to bring her back. They, right, yeah, immediately you know that's not going to go well. So in this world, there is something called alchemy, and it is kind of like a form of magic that requires like use of symbols and items and things like that. And there's the law of equivalent exchange, where if you give something, you have to, or if you want something, you have to receive, and so it has to be equal. So they attempt, after going through their dad's alchemy books in his library that he abandoned, they figure out what supposedly should make a human being, not really factoring in the soul and the fact that, you know, there's that equivalent exchange. So like they need to give up something to receive something. So it goes expectedly terribly. And the Ed ends up losing an arm and a leg for the whole thing. And Alphonse loses his entire body. And in a brief moment of just really clever and panic thinking, Ed has managed to seal his soul, Alphonse's soul, into that suit of armor so that he didn't just lose his brother entirely, but his body's completely gone.
Okay.
So I believe how it is Ed lost his leg and then he sacrificed his arm to get Alphonse's soul in the body. So they have kind of very traumatic moment, and then the thing they bring back is just kind of this like meat monster body horror, very gross, terrifying thing that's definitely not their mother. And so then they have kind of a sad array of facing what they did and then realizing that Alphonse's soul or body is just completely gone. Ed and Al, there is it's kind of the MacGuffin of the whole show, the Philosopher's Stone, which is supposedly this like big, super important crystal that will allow for any philosopher or any alchemist to be able to do alchemy without that equivalent exchange law. And they're not trying to bring back their mom anymore. And Ed doesn't even really care about his arm and his leg. He just wants to get his brother his body back. So that's kind of the framing for the whole show. So they had this tragic thing, and now they're just trying to reverse the mistake they made.
Okay.
The Fiora King Bradley and then Colonel Roy Mustang are it's kind of Amestris is kind of like this,
Mustang.
Roy Mustang is my favorite character. They hear about this really powerful alchemist in the resin bowl, and they end up finding Ed and then offering him a state alchemist if he passes a bunch of trials, and then he can do alchemy for the state, and then that will give him the means to like look for the Philosopher's Stone. He's really, really powerful, so that's kind of how he gets into this whole situation. So Amestris and kind of the whole thing is kind of militarized. There's a war with a bunch of different countries that has constantly been going on, and there's a lot of issues because of alchemy. Colonel Roy Mustang is the best. He's one of my favorite characters. He is voiced by Travis Willingham in the English dub, and if you listen to Critical Role, he's in there too. And so it was really exciting because I just started Critical Role and I was like, oh my god, Roy Mustang is in Critical Role. And I fangirled super hard. So they offer him this state alchemist thing, which is not like the venerable position that comes with all the training and hard work. It's, you know, they're considered to be like the dogs of the military because they go in and they're really kind of overpowered. It's kind of like bringing a wizard to a war and then they just kind of clean house. So no one really looks at this position as like the greatest thing ever, but they make a handful of friends. There's Colonel Mace Hughes, Riza Hawkeye, and a bunch of other cast of characters who, if I had the time, we could go into all of them. They're really well fleshed out. And they are slowly uncovering kind of secrets that are going on. In the meantime, Roy Mustang is trying to kind of figure out what the heck is going on with Fuhrer Bradley, or King Bradley. He's the head of everything, and there's just like something's not right about this guy. They way Brotherhood kind of sets it up is that they kind of tell things through like flashbacks, because they kind of assume you've seen the original, because the original kind of goes through like beat by beat, where this one kind of just references things that they've done in their past, which is, you know, a little bit more of like a Star Wars way of telling a story, but it gets the point across. They brothers go through and they meet Father Cornello and Lior. They get sent to these different places looking up and following rumors about the Philosopher's Stone. The first one is Father Cornello, and he is totally not a cult leader and is claiming claiming he has the Philosopher's Stone. And they meet a girl, Rose, there, who absolutely believes in this cult, and then they're trying to show her that this guy's actually a nut job, and turns out he is actually a nut job. And so there's a lot of those situations where they pull up to false leads, and they kind of get followed up by kind of the first level of bad guys in the series, which are the Homunculus. So the Homunculus are named after the 7 deadly sins, so lust, greed, gluttony, all those. And they are the kind of 8 antagonistic characters that you'll see through. I know 7 deadly sins, there's the 7, and then there's Father, we'll get to. So lust and envy and gluttony are kind of the main ones you see at the beginning of the series, where they're kind of following these Philosopher's Stone rumors, trying to figure out what's going on too. There's the very depressing It's Still Too Soon Shao Tucker scene with his daughter Nina, where he combines his daughter and the dog Alexander, and then because he's trying to prove that he can still be the greatest alchemist ever, because he was called the Sowing Life Alchemist, and he could like create chimeras with human speech, and then it turns out that he just murders people and then fuses them with animals. And there's a lot more body horror in this.
Gruesome.
Yeah, like favorite anime, but when I was going back through it, I was like, oh, there's a lot of body horror in this that I kind of blocked out of my memory. But basically they're kind of showing how this like beautiful, perfect, amazing magic thing isn't actually like all it's chalked up to be. And they reveal that he's kind of a nut job. I think he gets arrested, and then and then he is visited by Scar, a man who's covered in scars that is cleverly named Scar, and Scar is going around murdering state alchemists because he is in one of the warring states with our mistress. He's an Ishvalan, and he's trying to gain revenge for his brother's death because of all the state alchemists.
Okay.
So there's this whole battle and confusion kind of throughout the whole thing, so you get bits and pieces of what's going on, and with always the desperate attempt to try to find the Philosopher's Stone so that they can restore Alphonse's body back to himself. Kind of going into it more, Scar keeps showing up as the other antagonist to the situation. He manages to evade the military for a while. There's a constant back and forth between him. He's kind of like the boogeyman for a little while. And we start to learn more about the Homunculus, who are kind of very interesting characters. And one of the first major plot twists is the Fuhrer, the leader of the military, is actually Wrath. He's one of the 7 Homunculus. And that's kind of like the big major, oh no, what's going on? Why are the Homunculus in the military? And what you come to find out is that father, who is the air quotes father of the 7 deadly sins, was in the nation that no longer exists anymore of Xerxes. And he had decided he was going to be the perfect human or perfect being and purge himself of his 7 sins. So he's removed those sins, and that's turned into the 7 homunculus that we see. As we peel back layers, we find out that the 7 sins, the 7 homunculus, are not, they're just kind of retainers for what else is going on. We find out that Father is kind of a bad dude, as you can imagine, as someone who's pursuing perfection and removing their sins. Can tend to be in these kind of genre movies or genre animes. And Edward and Alphonse's father, who's Hohenheim, is connected to Father. And they actually, I've never understood this bit, but they have the same face. I think one is like a copy of the other. I'm not 1,000% sure on that one. But what it is, they've basically been battling with each other forever, basically since Xerxes fell. And Father used to be known as the dwarf in a flask. He was kind of like this homunculus type creature who Hohenheim found and was talking to, and had was trying to do the pursuit of knowledge, and naturally corrupted Hohenheim and convinced him to do kind of these terrible things so that he could be more than just this weird eyeball looking thing that was stuck in a flask. The next plot twist is that the Philosopher's Stone that Edward and Alphonse are hunting is because it was created through the sacrifice of a huge population of souls. So this big magic powerful rock that they're looking for that's going to fix all their problems comes with this cost of basically desecrating an entire city.
So it's not really this you don't have to give anything
right
kind of thing. So you do all the giving at the beginning, and then it's like loading up a gift card.
Right. Loading up a gift card with human souls. Absolutely.
Sorry, that was dark.
No, it's perfect. This whole show's dark. It's got its really happy uplift moments too, but the plot beats are actually pretty dark. So naturally, Ed has a moral issue with this because a bunch of people died for this little tiny rock that he has to kind of struggle with. So, I connected the word conspiracy with all these plot twists, and then slowly unveiling all these layers that Ed has to figure out and then kind of wrestle with as he goes further and further into this story. They do a really good job of kind of showing all sides of all characters. It's really, really well written. The Roy Mustang and Riza have this really intricate background and relationship, why he's trying to take over the Fuhrer and kind of his motivations, and they're not all good motivations. And then kind of learning about Hohenheim and Xerxes, and in Xerxes and what happened there. They just kind of peel back pieces one by one. It's fun, and it sounds terrible, but it's absolutely hilarious. The show, they do really good with having a light humor to things, like the tiny miniskirt scene. They have Louise Armstrong. Louise Armstrong is a kind of like a older brother figure to Ed and Al, and he's this big muscly guy that anytime he can, he pops out of his shirt, and he's just this big strong arm alchemist who can just hit the ground and explode an entire area, and is just a freaking train wreck. And he always shouts things like, "This technique has been passed down through the Armstrong family for generations." And he has a bomb older sister who works in a ice fortress that's like a military defense spot, where she kind of gets different pieces of the story through kind of her people, and then when Ed and Al come through, she kind of puts together a bunch of these pieces, and then she's like exactly the opposite of what you'd think with how big and boisterous Colonel Mustang or Armstrong is. She's more like reserved and like thinks her brother is kind of annoying, and
Aww.
you're like, oh god, you're so cool. But she does eventually say the thing where she does say the sword has been passed down through the Armstrong line for generations, and it's one of those big like, oh, she said the thing moments. And it's excellent. Alphonse has this thing where he doesn't kidnap, he rescues cats off the, like, stray cats off the side of the road, and then
fun.
all of a sudden you'll be like walking, and then there'll just be like a meow, and everyone just kind of looks at Alphonse, and he's like, what? It wasn't me.
So just to be clear, this whole time Alphonse is just a suit of armor.
He is just a suit of armor
walking around, but he's like able to do whatever with the suit of armor, like as though it was his body.
Basically, yeah. So he doesn't need to
So
sleep.
like, why
or
do
eat.
they care so much if he gets his body back?
Because he can't age, and he doesn't have, his own autonomy anymore. I think it's
why?
I think it's more of a story of like getting your humanity back. And
Okay.
as I hear you as someone who would very much enjoy not having to sleep so I could do more things in the day. But I think it's a story of like redemption and Edward trying to help his brother for this horrible mistake he made, and then Alphonse being able to regain his humanity because he is just a giant suit of armor and he's no longer a human anymore. And that's kind of...
I've never been a suit of armor myself, so I don't know how he's feeling.
I've always wondered what he feels like, because it'd be kind of neat. There's a running gag through the show because Alphonse is the younger brother, and everyone thinks that he's the Fullmetal Alchemist because every alchemist gets like a tag name, and he's in a big full suit of armor, so they all assume it's Alphonse, and then they think he is the older brother because he's taller, and Edward has this hang up about being really, really short, and then he's like, no, I'm the Fullmetal Alchemist, I'm the one who wins, I'm the strong boy. And to the regaining humanity thing, I think there's a lot of themes to be said with that, with Father trying to release his sins so that he can be like the perfectest thing ever, and then all of the 7 Homunculus trying to understand and not quite grasping humanity, because they are basically the embodiment of envy, of lust, of pride, of greed, and they just are kind of struggling along trying to figure out what the heck is going on themselves. And then, not necessarily evil, but, just the embodiment of that thing. Yeah. And so, not like a bear isn't evil, but it is just a bear, and that kind of situation. I've probably explained this absolutely horribly, but
that's okay. I think we did well.
It's a delightful show, and there's a lot of body horror. There's some gruesome scenes and some very dark scenes where you're like, holy crap, that just happened. But it does have a good ending. Ed and Al do get their bodies restored to them.
Spoilers.
Spoiler. The annual regular podcast spoiler alert. But it's definitely worth checking out, and the peeling back all the layers and learning how everything kind of intertwines, everyone's backstories, how they interact with each other.
Is it one of those things where if you watched it like multiple times through, kind of knowing how everything works, but then like catching more things each time?
Yeah, I would say so.
How many episodes is it?
It is 64 Brotherhood.
Ah!
So it is a trek. It is a journey to go through. I have watched it in whole twice. I've watched parts of it, like different parts of it at different parts of my life too. Because the 2003 one came out when I was a wee lad, and it was coming in on Toonami, so I had seen that bit. So I'd seen all like the filler bits, and then I found out about Brotherhood later, and then ended up watching it all the way through when it came out. And then I recently rewatched it a couple years ago, and it's watching it again and then knowing kind of how it ends and seeing how they kind of foreshadow it is really, really neat. Even if you can't commit to watching it twice through, I would recommend watching it at least once.
Sounds good.
It is one of the OGs for a reason, and it is the anime that got me into anime. There's so many amazing characters that I haven't even talked about, and just learning their character motivations, their backgrounds. They get their own little plots, and everything's pertinent and important. Brotherhood does a really good job of kind of filtering out the unnecessary, and it's very succinct in the storytelling. So it's absolutely worth it, in my opinion. It's a blast.
Hit me with some trivia.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
First one, starting off. What are the names of the creatures that Ed and Elle fight frequently, whose character names are the 7 deadly sins?
Oh, wait, I know this. You don't have to give me answers. It's the homunculus.
Woo woo!
Yeah! I got it.
At the end of the series, what does Edward sacrifice to get Alphonse's body back? His other leg, his own soul, his ability to do alchemy, or his eyes?
I think you did say that they both got their bodies back. So I think he would not sacrifice more of his body. I bet it was his ability to do alchemy.
Yep. He gives that up.
It seems fair.
He gives that up. There's this, I don't remember what the manga calls it, but in the anime they refer to him as God, and air quotes. And he is basically like a mirror reflection of yourself, kind of like in an inner sanctum situation. And when Ed has to face him, he's like, if I can have my brother back, I'll never do this again. And so they...
Wait, so does it like completely take away his ability, or just like, is it a promise that he will never dabble with it again?
It takes it away. So Edward has this special ability where he doesn't need alchemy circles. Because of the situation that he went through, where that sacrifice, he gained the ability to just be able to produce kind of alchemy magic at will, where everyone else requires alchemy circles. Like Roy Mustang is the flame alchemist. He has this magic glove where it's got fire symbols on it so that he can snap and produce fire, but he requires that to work. Ed doesn't need that. He definitely can use them, and that makes his alchemy more powerful, but he doesn't need it because of the kind of traumatic event they had at the beginning. So he gives that ability up, because that was what made him like the very important, like, seek out this awesome alchemist at the beginning of the series. That's how they found him, because there was rumors of this guy who was able to just do it without needing extra help.
I see. All right. Sorry. Let's go on to your next
That was kind of an important plot point to bring up.
That's all right.
All right. And then my last question, who I didn't mention her, but she's one of the coolest teacher-type characters in any genre. What is the name of Edward and Alphonse's alchemy teacher? Is it Trisha, Francis, Izumi, or Hank?
I mean, I like Francis or Hank. I'm gonna go with Hank just because it's funny.
That's fair and would be hilarious. It is Izumi.
Oh, okay.
Izumi's one of those, like, BAMF characters who will, like, kick you into next Thursday, even though she looks like she's really small and is not super powerful. She's awesome.
Very cool.
So that's what I had on conspiracy.
Wonderful. I think it fit the word well.
Quick mid-podcast announcement. We have a Twitter handle now, so you can at us and tell me all the things I missed talking about Fullmetal Alchemist. Or if you're like
but
my
you
mother,
also don't have to. You can just say nice things.
You can say nice things too. Or if you're my mom, you can tell me all the things I said wrong about Star Trek in the first one. But if
what
you
is
want
our Twitter handle?
Our Twitter handle is at Nerd of the Week, and you can use the hashtag Nerd of the Week or hashtag Nerd of the Week podcast to tell us what you talk about. And that's my announcement for this mid-bit. So
yeah,
Allison.
No, I like that as well. Telling us what you would have talked about for each of the words. That's fun.
I would like to know.
Yes, tell us. I also have a mid-podcast break for us. It's our quote of the week
Yes.
that features the word. I'm sorry, it doesn't actually say conspiracy. It says conspiring, but
I think that's fair.
Kind of the same. Okay, good.
The restraints of it should just be the same, like, word-ish.
That's fair. All right. So here it is. It's a little bit long. Sorry about that, but here we go.
That's all right.
And you'll have to tell me what it's from at the end.
Okay. No promises.
Though his throat was sore again from his early morning yell of horror, he was suddenly in a terrifically good mood. He wrapped his dilapidated dressing gown tightly around him and beamed in the bright morning. The air was clear and scented. The breeze flitted lightly through the tall grass around his cave. The birds were chirping at one another, the butterflies flitting around prettily, and the whole of nature seemed to be conspiring to be as pleasant as it possibly could.
Huh. Interesting. I will think about this thing.
Yes, think long and hard, and I shall reveal at the end. Now it's time for me to talk at you about some stuff.
Yeah, please talk at me about some stuff.
All right, so the thing that I picked for conspiracy was the film National Treasure.
Ah, yes. Excellent.
Have you seen the film?
I have seen the film.
All right. Good. There's also a second one, but we're going to be focusing just on the first today. So, National Treasure came out in 2004, a long time ago. It features, of course, Nicolas Cage as the main title role of Benjamin Franklin Gates. Diane Kruger's in there as the kind of romantic interest, Abigail Chase. They have a friend who's a computer hacker named Riley Poole, played by Justin Bartha. And then there is the antagonist, Ian Howe, who is played by Sean Bean, who really should have his name be Sean Bean, but whatever. And then they also have the dad in there who kind of features in the plot, who is John Adams Gates, played by Christopher Plummer.
Side random tangent on Sean Bean. My dad's name is Dean, and for like
my dad's name is Dean too.
For way longer than I care to admit, I really thought Sean was Sean, and then I finally met a Sean, and they were very mad at me.
It's an understandable mistake. I think every time I see the name written, that's how I say it in my head, is just Sean.
Right. Sorry, any Seans.
Maybe it should be Sean Bon.
Ooh, Sean Bon would be pretty good. You could open up like a Cinnabon place and be like Sean Bon Cinnabon.
Oh, nice. But then we'd have to start pronouncing Dean as Dawn.
Oh, that's true. And I don't think my dad would appreciate that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. All right, shout out to our dads.
Woo woo!
I know you're listening. All right, so going on, National Treasure here. The plot focuses on this legend or conspiracy theory that the Knights Templar / Freemasons are hiding an enormous wealth of treasure that dates back to the Egyptians and Romans, and it's somewhere in America. Because why would it be anywhere else?
Because America.
All right, so it opens up with the child Ben, when he's young, of course, his grandfather telling them kind of the history of this conspiracy theory and how their family's been trying to hunt down this treasure basically since Revolutionary War times when it was first hidden. And like each generation has kind of picked away at it, trying to figure out exactly where the treasure is, but they only have like a few clues to go on. And so far, the most updated clue they have is the words, "The secret lies with Charlotte." And no one's really been able to kind of crack it from there. Like, what could this mean? Who's Charlotte? And then flash forward 30 years, Ben is now a big-time historian, and he's leading this expedition into the Arctic with his friend Riley and his, at that time, friend Ian. We'll see how that goes in a second, but they're trying to go on this expedition to find a ship that was called Charlotte. So the secret lies with Charlotte. So obviously it's not going to be the treasure right away. That would be a 5-minute film. Instead, they find a clue on this fancy pipe. It's a specific type of pipe called a Merksholm pipe, which is basically a fancy type of stone, apparently. But the way it's carved is kind of important there. So it has these intricate little figures on it. And to figure out what it says, Ben actually, like, cuts his hand open and rubs the blood all over the pipe, and then they roll it out onto a paper. And they read
super
what
sanitary.
Yeah, right. Like, you couldn't just, like, I don't know, get it wet or something? There's snow all around. It's the Arctic. But no, they needed to use blood. So they read out what it says, and basically it's pointing them to the Declaration of Independence. It's like, well, how are we going to get that? It's under lock and key, obviously. No one's going to let us just go look at the Declaration. And Ian says, well, why don't we just steal it? Ben and Riley, not so much about this right now. Like, they're not going to steal the Declaration of Independence, but Ian, like, he doesn't care. He's going to go do it. So they kind of split up. There's a bit of a scuffle. Ben and Riley are left alone. Anyway, they somehow make it back to America. Ben and Riley are super concerned that the Declaration's going to be stolen, so they go to the FBI, and they're like, someone's going to steal the Declaration. You have to protect it. And the FBI's like, no one's going to steal the Declaration, and kind of brush them off. So then they go to the archives and look at the Declaration, and they talk to Abigail Chase, played by Diane Kruger. She is an archivist who kind of watches over all the fancy documents, and they tell her someone's going to steal the Declaration, and she doesn't believe them either. No one does. Because really, who's going to steal the Declaration? Come on. And then as she's like dismissing them, Ben right then and there decides, well, I'm going to steal it then. So in the kind of a turn against what they were just saying, they weren't going to let it happen. So they have to steal it before Ian. I guess they're worried he's going to destroy it. That makes sense. They're going to be careful with it, but still steal it. So they come up with this elaborate heist, and it involves like getting Abigail's fingerprints. So they actually like send her this Revolutionary War button that has actually a special chemical that they've laced it with that it gets on her fingers, and then they'll be able to pick up her fingerprints. Just so happens there's a gala at the archives that night that they break themselves into, or rather Ben does. Riley is hacking computers at this time. But then he flirts with Abigail, kind of woos her, kind of gets her to touch this fancy champagne glass or whatnot, and then pilfers off her fingerprints from there. He then takes the fingerprints, able to go get down into the base of the archives where the Declaration of Independence is currently being stored, because there's a huge gala, there's lots of people, so they have it safely packed away. At the same time, Ian and his crew are still trying to steal the Declaration of Independence, but they have guns and explosives and all sorts of scary things that Ben did not want to use. Ben is able to break all the way in there. He gets the Declaration. Everything is fine, but then Ian starts shooting at him. At one time, he uses the Declaration in its fancy box to shield himself, because it has bulletproof glass around it. And so the Declaration saves him. He gets into the elevator and takes it out of its fancy box, rolls it on up, and his plan is to actually escape through the gift shop of the archives. Well, this rolled up Declaration is sticking out of his pocket, and the gift store clerk is like, hey, are you trying to steal that? Because they think it's just one of these fake Declarations that they have there for $5 or whatever. And Ben's like, no, I'll pay for it. So he pays for this, quote, fake Declaration, but it's the real Declaration. But Abigail notices,
technically he owns it now.
Well, yeah, technically, yeah, he paid for it. And doesn't it belong to the people? Anyway, Abigail kind of notices that, like, something is up. There's, like, some alarms going off and some guards are, figuring out what's going on. And that's because Ian's crew has severely messed stuff up. And then Abigail sees Ben, who she now realizes when he first talked to her how to use a fake name, and she doesn't see the name on the guest list, so she's like putting two and two together, and it's like, oh no, he stole the declaration. So she takes off running after him, and they get into the car, and basically she's not going to let go of the declaration, but he's like, no, we have to have the declaration. And basically kind of brings her into the whole conspiracy that they're looking for. And she's not really for this idea. She doesn't want anyone touching the declaration. It's an important document. But she kind of continues to go on with them, and for whatever reason doesn't, like, call the cops. I mean, I guess it's 2004. Not everyone has cell phones.
I suppose.
So anyway, they then get to somewhere. I believe it was Ben's dad's house where they did all this. But they unfurl the declaration, and... Oh, yes. Okay. It's definitely Ben's dad's house. They unfurl the declaration, but they have it flipped over onto the back. And they're like, there must be invisible ink here somewhere. And so they're going to pour lemon juice on the declaration and then stick it into the oven. And Abigail's like, oh, no, you can't do this. It's going to destroy it. So it does allow them to put the lemon juice on as long as she's the one who does it. She, like, uses this little Q-tip and, like, gently dabs it on a corner. I don't know how they knew that it was in that corner on the entire, like, 3-foot big paper, but they obviously picked the right spot right from the get-go. And they notice nothing happens, and the dad is like, because you need heat. And so in this, like, little romantic moment, Ben and Abigail get, like, real close to it and both breathe on it, and it's so cute. And then they see the letters. And basically after this, it's telling them that they need to go to... or it's referencing the Silence Do-Good letters that Benjamin Franklin wrote. And they're like, oh, perfect. We're here at Ben's dad's house, and he has these letters in his possession. So they're like, Dad, go get the letters. Well, before he does that, he first overturns the document. He's like, oh my gosh, this is the Declaration of Independence. And he's like, you stole the Declaration. He's in shock. And then he's also like, and I don't have those letters, by the way. I donated them to the Franklin Institute. So it's this whole thing. They have to now go to the Franklin Institute, but they don't want Ben's dad, like, following after them and calling the FBI on them. But they obviously are wanted people. They can't just go anywhere. They can't go into the Franklin Institute. So they, like, pay this poor little kid to go and read the letters for them to get the code that they need from, like, different letters and lines and whatnot. This little cipher that's in the letters. And they manage to evade the FBI still. So this points them that they need to go to the bell tower of Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And that's where they will find Benjamin Franklin's glasses. And this is what they need. It has, like, different lenses, different colored lenses that they can move up and down. So they, like, calibrate it correctly and then look at the back of the Declaration again. And it says, here at the wall, here spelled with 2 E's. And they're like, what does that mean? We don't know. But just as they're trying to figure it out, they look out the bell tower and they see Ian coming and also the FBI coming. And Ben is arrested and sent off to federal prison since he stole the Declaration. But right as he's about to be transferred to, like, the guards who are going to take him to prison, somehow he's saved by Ian. And it's because Abigail and Riley have made a deal with Ian that they will work together, give Ian the clues, and Ben is able to come with them. So now they have Ian, the bad guy, with them. Ben doesn't like this plan. He doesn't want anything to do with Ian and kind of refuses to give him the clue. But then Ian reveals that he's now kidnapped Ben's dad. There's a lot of kidnapping going on in this whole movie. And Ben is like, oh gosh, okay, so I have to tell you. Apparently the clue here at the wall, it meant Broadway and Wall Street, and therefore at the corner of those apparently is Trinity Church in New York City. Broadway used to be, I think called Here Street or something like that is their methodology in there. So anyway, they all go into the church. They find a grave with a Freemason symbol on it, of course, and they bust out this old dusty skeleton from the grave, but then behind it... Riley doesn't like it one bit. He is so grossed out by the skeleton. But there's this huge tunnel behind the grave, and they all go down it, and it's like this huge sinkhole into the ground, and this like rickety staircase made of wood. They're all going down it, and there's a few close calls where they almost fall, and for whatever reason they take flaming torches with them. Why not use flashlights? Gotta use fire.
Fire is
Make
cooler.
it cool. Yeah. And then there's, kind of at the end of the staircase, there's an elevator. So they get on the elevator. It's a pulley system, and it's like one way up, one way down kind of thing. They get to the bottom, and there's a single lantern in this little room. And there's like a few little bits of treasure kind of scattered about here and there, but it's not like a lot of treasure. And it's just the single lantern in the middle. And Ben is all mad. He's like, I guess someone got here first. And Ian's like, no, this is another clue. And he insists that, like, this is not the end of the treasure hunt. There must be another clue. And Ben's dad says, okay, it's the lantern. There's a single lantern, so it must be the Old North Church in Boston. And he thinks that this is going to let them all get out. Well, Ian gets on the elevator and leaves, leaving them all stranded down there.
Like a scoundrel.
Right. And it turns out that the clue was fake. Ben says to his dad, but it can't be the Old North Church because they put 2 lanterns in the church. And his dad says, I know that, and you know that, but Ian doesn't. So they basically send Ian off to do his own thing, get him out of the way, but they're still stranded. But Ben knows, this was the Masons. They were smart about their conspiracies and also their building. Mm-hmm. So, therefore, there must be a ventilation system somewhere, some other way out. And it must be through the treasure room. So they're all, like, feeling the walls, like, just, trying to find any kind of crevice or whatever. And they find this little keyhole that they realize is the same shape as that pipe from earlier. From way at the beginning of the movie. So they take out the pipe and... Yeah. Exactly. Gotta use the pipe if you see it. Mm-hmm. So they put it into the keyhole in the wall, and they, like, press on it, and this door, like, slides open, and it's all dark inside, but there's, like, this pool of oil or whatever. They light it up with their torches, and just, like, this entire room illuminates with this massive, improbable amount of treasure. And it's just a huge room, like an auditorium size. It's amazing. And they're like, oh my god, we actually found it. Wow. And they're all, like, wondering out all the treasures. They each find something that they like. Like Abigail, she's, of course, the archivist. She finds these scrolls, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's from the library at Alexandria. So, like, they all find some niche little thing that they love. And Ben actually calls now the FBI agent who had been searching for him, because it turns out that the agent was also a Freemason.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so he basically says, yo, this is where we are right now with, might I mention, the treasure. Ian is here, so go get him and put him in jail. And also, I promise to give back the Declaration of Independence. And for whatever reason, FBI's like, that's so cool. Yeah, we'll let you go free. No questions asked. And we'll even give you some of the money from this enormous treasure. And so that's kind of how it ends. They're rich. They only apparently took like 2% of the treasure earnings. And Riley says, you could have had a bigger house if you would have taken 20%. But they're like, no, it's too much. We've been over this. But still, it's like they live in a mansion. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So that's kind of how it all ends. They solve the conspiracy. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was real all along.
Yeah.
Yay. So that's kind of how that all goes. It's a fun movie, I will say. It's a very improbable story, And it actually
absolutely.
only has like a 46% rating on Rotten Tomatoes just because everyone's like, the story, come on, it's so unbelievable.
I mean, if
But
you just go for the ride, it's fun.
Yeah, and that's what they're like. It's a good thrill ride is literally like one of the quotes that I saw about it. No, I always thought that this was a great movie when I was little and watching it. Came out right as I was like in going into middle school basically, and my parents actually took me on a vacation where we went to Washington DC and Philadelphia, and we like saw all these places.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
kinda
yes,
fun.
I'm living national treasure. So that was cool and fun. But I think if I rewatched it now, I haven't seen it for quite a few years at this point, but like I'm sure the plot holes would be so evident.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also kind of a fun thing to look for in movies. Is like,
Right.
oh, but how could this plot happen if it's such and such a thing?
Right.
And also, I think it's funny that they made like a historian into like an action character, like
Right.
kind of Indiana Jones-esque, but like even different.
Yeah,
more
they were
different than
absolutely
that.
trying to like hit that Indiana Jones like vein.
Mm-hmm. And I think they succeeded. It's pretty good.
It's a good movie.
Perfect. So I have some trivia for you. And these are, I didn't tell any of these answers during my summary. So hopefully since you've seen the movie, you know the answers to them.
Okay, I can't guarantee anything, but we'll do our best.
I only have 2 questions. So the
Okay.
first one is, after the archive gala, they're still in all their fancy clothes, and they obviously can't just go around in tuxes and dresses. So where do they go to buy their street clothes? Target, Goodwill, Urban Outfitters, or Macy's?
Was it Macy's?
Oh no.
No.
Would you like another guess?
Urban Outfitters.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. I always thought it was so weird. It's like, specifically they went to Urban Outfitters. It's very
Random
apparent in the
product
movie.
placement.
Exactly. Like, this is a Disney movie. Do they really need that sort of promotion to make this happen? Like, I guess they did. And then the next one is, what is Abigail's password that Ben guesses to get into the secure vault? Valley Forge, Red River Valley, Gettysburg, or Bunker Hill?
Is it Gettysburg?
No. Oh, I'm so sorry. It was Valley Forge.
Dang it. Oh, goodness. Well, I failed that one.
No, that's okay. They were deep cuts.
They were deep cuts. I appreciate, though.
All right, so that was my conspiracy.
It was pretty solid. I see what you mean when you went a different direction for conspiracy.
Yeah, but, I mean, it still works, I guess.
Yeah, no. Totally good. Conspiracy theories. Always appreciate.
All right, so you've had time to think about this quote, even though you were thinking about National Treasure. So you didn't have much time, but do you have any idea where it could be from?
Is it a poem?
No.
Dang. My
Fortunately
only
not.
thought was some sort of like Emerson quote. So I'm completely off. Can I have a hint?
It's from a sci-fi novel.
A sci-fi novel. What genre or like what era of sci-fi?
Like 80s, 90s?
Is it oh gosh, what is his name? He wrote the Necronomicon.
I don't know who you're going for. But
okay, well then I have no idea. It's not an H.P. Lovecraft thing? Okay.
No.
Okay. Then I have no idea.
All right. It is from Life, the Universe, and Everything by Douglas Adams, which is the 4th book of the Hitchhiker's Guide trilogy.
I've only read the first one, and I don't know that I would pull that. But solid quote. I appreciate.
Thanks. It was actually, when I was trying to think of conspiracy quotes, it was the only quote that I had in my mind. Like, I guess I've read these books so many times.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Douglas Adams is pretty solid.
Maybe one day I'll bring Hitchhiker's Guide for something.
I feel like it's a solid nerd topic that we could absolutely talk about. Hey, generator, what is our word for next week?
The next word of the day is merchant.
Oh man, merchant. have to think about that one.
Yes. Thoughts will be had about this.
And remember, now you can message us at Nerd of the Week on Twitter. Let us know what you would talk about for conspiracy.
But don't give us any ideas for merch. We want to come up with our own.
Right. And then you can talk to us next time.
So many rules.
So many rules. We're coming up with too many rules. You can add us about our rules. I hope you enjoyed our deep dives into some conspiracy adjacent nerd fandoms. And with that, I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And this has been Nerd of the Week. Remember, if you don't have anything cool to say, you can play Random Word Association with the Random Word Generator.
Bye!
Goodbye.